Hi, everybody. I'm super excited today to be here with Akshay Nanavati. Akshay is a Marine veteran, speaker, adventurer, entrepreneur, and author whose book Fearvana is an actionable guide on how to leverage fear to accomplish anything. Akshay is an amazing human and is currently engaged in a project to accomplish the first ever solo crossing of the Antarctic continent, which he'll be starting this November. Beam Minerals is supporting him in his journey with dollars, but also with Beam Minerals, which will be helping to fuel his journey. We're asking our Beamer community to also support Akshay's endeavor as an example of someone who's willing to go through just about anything to prove that anything is possible. Thank you so much for joining me, Akshay.
Thank you so much for having me and for all the support. I'm just eternally grateful to you and Bean Minerals. It means the world.
We were so happy to have met you, and we're really excited to be supporting you.
Thank you.
You call your journey the Great Soul Crossing, which is an amazing name. Can you explain that, and why would anyone want to do something like this?
Yes, yeah. Great question. So I'll start with why the Great Soul Crossing. In my life, and I'll get to that here next, I've gone through many moments, many challenging moments where in the transition of transcending these moments, of moving through these moments, there's a death of an old self and a rebirth of a new self. And these moments, I think, are what life is about. Now, sometimes they're thrust upon us, and sometimes we engineer them. So me going to Antarctica to spend 110 days completely alone in the most unforgiving environment on the planet, where geographically I'll be the most isolated life form on Earth for portions of this journey. Needless to say, it's going to push me to places in my own soul that I've never been before. And so the idea is this journey is my soul's evolution from one version of who I am now to who I will be on the other side of this. It was really inspired by Greek mythology when somebody died, then they would say that they would put coins on their eyes to pay the boatman to ferry them into the afterlife, right? So their souls moving from one life essentially to another. And I think these deaths and rebirths are invaluable parts of one human life. And the whole idea is not only for me to go through my own great soul crossing, which I inevitably will in this feat, but to inspire other people to engineer and seek out their own great soul crossings in service of their own evolution and growth. That's what the name came from. And to then answer, why would anybody do this? So my journey that led me to embarking upon this adventure, which is kind of a culmination of decades of adventuring, it began when I enlisted in the Marines. So I enlisted in the Marines soon after moving to the US, where actually before that, I was very heavily into drugs, into alcohol, very self-destructive, lost two friends to addiction, was going down that path until I saw the movie Black Hawk Down. And that movie planted the seed that changed my life. Just watching these men sacrificing their lives for another human being and the kind of courage it takes to do that. It made me question this meaningless existence I was living and stop doing drugs almost overnight and join the Marines. And in the Marines, I learned the beauty of suffering. I learned that I have something within myself, and that we all do, because you see everybody suffering together in the Marines, to transcend suffering in service of something greater. Not just for your own self and for your own power that we're tapping into, but in the Marines, it's for the men and the mission, right? It's not about your own well-being. It's about your men. It's about the mission, and that transcends you. So to experience that world where your well-being is less important because it is about the greater good, was profoundly beautiful. And from there, I started looking for other ways to challenge myself, confront my own fears. And I got into every outdoor sport you can think of: rock climbing, mountain climbing, cave diving, skydiving, kind of you name it. Was deployed to Iraq in 2007 as an infantry Marine, where one of my jobs was to walk in front of our vehicle convoys looking for bombs before they could be used to kill me and my fellow Marines. So a pretty dangerous job. But through all these experiences, I learned to master my own relationship with fear and struggle and suffering and hardship, until I came back from the war, was diagnosed with PTSD, struggled with depression, lost friends, junior Marines to suicide, lost friends in war. And I was on the verge of taking my own life one day after days of binge drinking. And that rock bottom moment began my climb out of the abyss, where I delved deep into neuroscience, psychology, spirituality. It led to this ethos of fear of honor, writing this book, and then going deep into exploring new edges within myself. So I began running ultra marathons. I've spent 10 days sitting in a dark room completely alone. I've climbed mountains in the Himalayas, been on multiple polar expeditions. And then it all led me to this now. This is the last great feat in Antarctica that hasn't been accomplished yet, to do a full solo crossing without wind power or dogs. And the inspiration was, one, it's the idea of pushing the very boundaries of what's possible, pushing the boundaries of human endurance. Because when we do that, it touches other people's lives, right? It's the Roger Bannister 4 minute mile effect. I've been inspired by so many stories of people who've pushed their own limits and then realize that if they can do that, I might have something in me that I can push farther than I think possible. And then I go explore my own edges and I see that. I tap into that in the soul, right? And so I want to go out there for ultimately two reasons at a meta level: selfish and selfless. Selfishly, for me, it is about tapping into my own divinity, to go into the depths of my own soul and find something I've never found before. And you can only find that in the depths of solitude and hardship. To go so far out there, such an extreme, I can explore places within myself that have never been explored, even though I've pushed the edges a lot, but I want to go deeper, right? And that's what this allows me to do. And selflessly, it's to bring the wisdom back from the edge. And to me, I feel like it's a responsibility to share it, because when I was in Iraq, my vehicle drove over an active bomb that for some reason didn't explode. My friends drove over a bomb, it exploded, and he died. And so there's always been this feeling like I have a responsibility to earn this life that I've been gifted. I can't waste it drinking anymore. And so playing on these edges allows me to then come back and share the wisdom. Because when you battle a dragon, that's how you find a treasure. And out there, you're battling some of the biggest dragons you can find in terms of at least voluntary suffering. And so inevitably, the treasures I unearth are going to be some of the grandest treasures. And my mission is to then bring it back and share with others to help them on their own great soul crossing.
That is so cool. When I
You.
first heard you speak, and maybe it was the second time where I asked you some questions about that point that we all get to if we're really, and many of the people who are in the Beam community have been on health journeys, and different kinds of journeys, whether it was mental and emotional issues or physical issues that became mental and emotional issues. And many people in this day and age are hitting up against that, like, I can't, or fear, the great fear of that I'm not going to get through this. And what would you tell somebody who is hitting up against that point in themselves?
First thing I would say is to accept and embrace the fear. In my experience, when I work with people, they often feel like they should not be afraid. So they'll demonize, I need to stop being afraid, because people will say things like, don't be scared of failure, don't be scared of this, don't be scared of that. I'm terrified of failure. So, whatever the fear may be in a health journey, okay, got it, I'm scared. And one of my many mantras is, when you engage it, fear propels you to prepare. And I actually do this in every tough thing I've done, even writing a book on fear. Okay, what am I scared of? Why am I scared? What's the worst case scenario? So if somebody's going through this and they're feeling some fear in their health journey, go through this process, write it down. Okay, this is the worst case scenario. Got it. Now, what can I do to prepare for that worst case scenario? Because most people, when we're going through something in that can't experience, will say things like, I can't do this, or there's no way to move through this. And we make these statements. When you make a statement, it's like a wall. But if you turn that statement into a question, now you have a door. How can I do this? Right? Even Antarctica. I mean, I just found out that the expedition is quite an expensive expedition, as you well know, and the cost has actually just gone up. We found out a week and a half ago. But when that happens, it's easy to say, oh, there's no way, or I can say, got it. This is what it takes. How can I do this? Now you start finding answers. So that's the first thing I would say, is embrace the fear, accept the fear, be with the fear, engage the fear, write down, what can I do to prepare for this worst case scenario that is the possible outcome? And then now you start finding answers. And this is, part of visualization is visualizing the positive outcome you want. But another part that's not often talked about is actually called negative visualization. And astronauts do this. I do this, especially in my line of work, where the consequences are quite severe if something goes wrong. You visualize everything that could go wrong so you can prepare for it. I've literally written a list down in Antarctica. Here is every single thing that could go wrong. Got it. Here's how I make sure it doesn't happen, right? So anybody going through that health journey, now you start looking for answers. Like that's something that might have led them to be minerals, right? Oh, here's something that can help me address this. So now you start looking for solutions, and then you have to have that mindset of looking for solutions, and also remembering that problems are not inherently a bad thing. Problems are what lead to solutions. And no matter where you get to in life, whether you're healthy with $1 billion, you're going to have a problem. So I always like to say the progress is not the elimination of problems. Progress is the creation of new problems. So that's all about looking for what's that next problem. That's why I'm here in Norway training. I'm constantly looking for what is the next weakness? What is the next problem that I haven't thought about yet, but I want to find that new problem, because that's how I can lead to a new solution and a new growth.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. One of the things that I think is really interesting is how many people are on your team to prepare you and put this whole thing together?
I would say my greatest asset is the people around me. I mean, it's hard to actually count the amount of people that have contributed, donated, the amount of I have trainers, like my polar trainer here in Norway, other polar mentors. I have a nutritionist friend, I have a doctor, I have a supplement designer friend who you also speak with, who made a custom supplement for Antarctica. I mean, it is a countless number of people. Of course, there's my family, my wife, who supports in more ways than I can possibly describe in my day to day. I mean, she handles life so I can focus on training. I mean, it is an army of people. Like I will be alone in Antarctica for 110 days, but there is just zero way this could happen without the amount of people it takes to make this happen, including yourself and all the support you've provided as well.
Well, I think it's such a great metaphor because we tend to look at people who are accomplished or have accomplished big things, and we tend to look at them and say they did this. Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And then we look at ourselves and we see all of our obstacles, and we see all of those, those places where we hit up inside
Yeah.
ourselves or outside of ourselves, and we forget to realize that a huge army of people supported and made that
Great point.
possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I love that thing of, instead of looking at saying there's a problem, look for a door. Ask turn the
Exactly.
problem into a question, or the obstacle into a question. How can I do this?
Yeah.
And what help do I need so that I
What
can?
helped? I think I forget who it was. Somebody wrote that book, Who Not How. So who
Yes.
can you find? Because I am by no means an expert in most of the areas, even nutrition, for example. I am not an expert, but I have friends who are experts, friends who will say, hey, this is what you need to do, right? I know my lane. I stay in my lane that I thrive in. And there's other people smarter than me who come together, because each of us, when we come together, we create a sum greater than our individual parts. So to your point, I don't think there's a person on earth who's self-made. We're nobody's self-made. We all build from a team that makes us greater than what we can do individually.
It's something that one of the things I've been talking about relative to minerals, and of course I always have to bring minerals in the conversation, is
Of course.
the concept that, the entire earth is an ecosystem. And humans, we tend to think of ourselves as separate from the earth, but we are actually part of the earth's ecosystem.
Mhm.
And so we are absolutely not separate from one another. Whether we like it or not, we are affecting one another. And so a simple thing of getting minerals into somebody can actually create this incredible impact, because once they have more energy in their own body, it begins to, they now have more bandwidth and don't get upset at somebody when they're being annoying, or they laugh and they bring some joy here, or they're able to face the fear inside themselves and have a different experience. I was in the gym the other day, and I've been doing a training routine with somebody who is some circuit training, they're preparing for a triathlon. And I thought, I'd love to do this training
Mm.
because I want to up my capacity in my own body. And we were doing this circuit, and at some point in the circuit, we're doing some squats with weights, and it was intense.
Yeah.
And I hit that moment of like, I can't. And then I thought of you actually, and I thought about a conversation that you and I had and some of the things that you said about that moment. And like, rather than hearing the voice, I can't, is there another voice? Is there another something behind that? Because the I can't is coming from what I call the little brain.
Yeah.
Is there some
Yeah.
larger capacity that I can connect with? And it was amazing, Akshay. Literally, I went on to do like 10 more reps.
That's awesome. I
And
love that.
because I realized that sometimes my fear is related to, let's say I have pain, whether it's,
Mm,
an aching muscle or it's just tired
mm,
because I've been, lifting or something. And I hit that point where the pain tells me to stop because of fear, because I've connected
mm,
it to fear. So I'm wondering if
mm.
you could talk a little bit into that, the disconnection of the concept of fear and its impact in the body from it just being a sensation.
Yeah, great question. I love how you call it little brain. It's a good way to think of it as two selves. When I was in the darkness retreat, I would journal, and what I started calling it was the mortal self and the immortal self. So we don't often control the thoughts, and we rarely control the thoughts and feelings that initially arise in our brain, right? I mean, they just come, as we all know that we can relate to that. Something rises, a feeling rises. If something happens right now, I have a feeling in response to external stimuli. I don't control that. But what I do control with practice, especially, is mastering what I do once that thing shows up. So you noticed, for example, that voice. Oh, I can't do this anymore. But what the mastery is the ability to have that voice, but not make that voice your reality. So to say it's there, but there's a space between that voice and who I choose to be outside of it. So I still have those moments where, I mean, I remember I was in Iceland on a solo expedition. Actually, it was a group expedition, and I was on a solo area section kind of to catch up with the camp because I had a really heavy sled. So I was 10 hours into the day. I thought I was maybe 10 minutes from camp. I look at my GPS and I realized I was 2 more hours left. And in my mind, I was like, kind of just went into super, this sucks. I hate this. And then, but after about 10 seconds of this, I just paused and I said, got it. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Just take one more step. And what I often do especially when I'm in those moments is remembering this is why I'm here. Why would I do something like skiing across Antarctica if I want it easy? So those moments are actually what it's all about. Because when you go experience those moments, and you have to build yourself up. Like I wasn't someone who can ski across Antarctica overnight. I've failed many times on mountains, on things that I've attempted, but then I push a little harder. So wherever you are in your journey, find something. Even if right now it's a 5K, whatever it may be, right? Okay, you do it, and then you experience that moment, and you find something. Oh, I could actually push more than I thought. Got it. Now you start to develop that belief. I don't think you need to. One of my beefs with a lot of personal development is this stressing on overcoming and eliminating beliefs. You don't need to believe in yourself to take action. Belief is built on the battlefield, is what I like to say. So you just need to leap into action. Sometimes we could all be a little bit more like a bull in a china shop, just running, getting hurt, and we're going to get a little hurt, and that's okay. But that's how you build that belief. So I've done this enough times now that I've gone to war with myself and say, oh, I know what I'm capable of, right? I know what the human spirit is capable of. So when you feel that moment, just like you experienced it, got it. I notice my brain saying I can't. I don't have to listen to this. This is not reality. I know I'm capable of something more. Let me just do one more. And a key thing is making your world small, because especially in my feet, in my what I do with polar travel. I mean, imagine I'm on day 40 and I'm like having a really bad day, which is inevitable. I'll have bad days a lot throughout Antarctica, and I'll have good days, of course, too. But now I'm day 40, and if I start thinking that I have another 70 days
Right.
left of this, I'm gonna break. I'm gonna break. So you make your world small. All right, let me just do 1 more hour. Even when I do training, I have many training days, where I'm having, let's say, tired because from the previous day, or stressed out because of the funding or whatever it may be, and I haven't slept too well. And I'll think about, oh, I gotta do 5 hours of training, and then that'll feel too much. So I'll even say, all right, I'm just gonna go to the ski thing and I'll just do like a few laps. But as soon as I get there, I know, you kind of trick your brain to take the first step, and then you start finding something greater and greater. But remembering that moment when you hit that wall, when that can't, to me, I call it the moment. And that moment is what it's all about. That moment is when you experience true transcendence. Like that's why I do hard things, is for that moment. So the more you do it, you actually develop a love for it. And when it happens, you're like, this is what I was waiting for. The deepest suck that I could possibly find, so I could tap into God, self, consciousness, to transcend that. And that's what it's all about.
That's so cool. I was in the gym a few weekends ago on a Sunday morning, and there was just one other person in the gym, and he's a guy who has maybe had polio or something, but he can't walk
Mm,
very well. His legs are very impaired, very strong upper body, but his legs are very impaired, and we're just in different areas of the gym. But at one point I saw him, he had to get down on the ground. It took him quite a bit to just get down on the ground. And then he
Mm.
did a plank, and he did a 3-minute plank.
Whoa.
3 minutes.
Impressive.
I didn't know it till it was like afterwards I was like, wow, that was long. And he said, yep, I've been
Yeah.
working on that for a long time. That's 3 minutes. And I was like, holy crap. And we talked for a while, and then he left, and I was like, I've got to try and do a 3-minute plank. And
Yeah.
I went down, and of course it was almost, I mean, I hadn't trained for it and et cetera. I
Yeah.
ended
Yeah.
up doing it. I ended up doing a 3-minute plank.
Wow.
I know. And the way that I did it was I kept thinking about him, and I said,
Mm.
you know, his legs, he doesn't have the strength in his legs to do the different things, move from
Mm.
one muscle group to another to support the plank. And I kept trying to find places in my body where I could continue. It's like,
Mm.
okay,
I
this
love it.
this I can't do it. My core is really sore, so I'm going to support with my arms and legs now, and then I'm going to
Yeah.
switch, and I'm going to move the support around my body, and I was able to do it. I've never done a 3-minute plank.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love
isn't it?
that.
Isn't it? I was
I
right.
love that. Yeah.
But it really speaks to what you're talking about, how we really have no idea the level of reserves that we have in our body.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's actually really healthy to give ourselves an opportunity to experience that edge,
Mhm.
and then play with, and not to create trauma, but to create a bit of stress to the
Mhm.
system so we can face into those difficult moments.
Yeah.
What I want to
Absolutely.
do, first of all, I really want to thank you so much for being willing to have this conversation, because I
Oh,
really wanted to introduce you to our Beam Minerals community. It is an amazing group of people. Every single one of our customers and our partners and our practitioners,
mm,
we love them, and they love the minerals. And I want them to know that the minerals are going to be with you in your body on your journey. And
absolutely.
I'm going to really ask everyone in the community if you can give whatever you can give to support this man, Akshay Nanavati, on his soul crossing journey. I would be forever grateful. And I know that Akshay would also be grateful. So,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for the support. I mean, to your point, it's quite an expensive journey to make this happen. We actually just found out a week and a half ago. We got the final quote from ALE, Antarctic Logistics and Expeditions. They're the ones who manage logistics for this, and it went up. It's now $1.1 million. So we are fighting hard. We've raised about 650K so far. So we're fighting hard to make this happen. And any bit, we have a crowdfunding campaign, as you know, and your generous contribution has made a huge difference. But it's greatsoulcrossing.com, SOUL, greatsoulcrossing.com, and different donation tiers, as well as different rewards. I give away a lot of deep dive mindset trainings that I've developed over decades of playing on these edges, and every bit adds up. It helps to fund this. People often wonder how comes it costs so much, because we're flying to some of the most remote corners of the world. We're extending the Antarctic season, which is normally 85 days. They have to extend it just for this journey. So that means you need a radio operator, a staff, a medical, a doctor, a pilot, co-pilot, paying for the planes. And you're doing this in one of the most hostile, unforgiving, remote regions of the world, right? Flights to Antarctica, flights within Antarctica are quite expensive, to say the least. So every bit really helps, and I appreciate your support and also sharing this with your tribe.
we'll put the link to the Great Soul Crossing in the notes down below. So
Thank you.
please link through, read more, and donate to Akshay's incredible journey. Thank you so much for for being a part of this conversation. I so appreciate it.